They said lion doesn't know that he's caged until he's let out. I got a taste of freedom. Now I just can't go back into the cage.
There was only one name that mattered: Bumpy Johnson.
April 11th, 1955. A building inspector named Marcus Chen walked into a condemned warehouse in the South Bronx to sign off on the wrecking ball. What he saw behind a sealed door would mess with his head forever and send him straight to a shrink. 6 stiffs piled by the door, sealed from the outside, windows covered, vents poured full of concrete. A 10 by 10 box turned into a coffin. You could tell their last hours were hell on earth. Fingernails torn off, scratching at the steel. Blood on the vents. Faces twisted in pure terror. They ran out of air. Slow and painful. Awake the whole time. Knowing the end was coming, and unable to do a damn thing about it. A few hours later, the cops found 4 more spots just like it across the Bronx and Upper Manhattan. Different counts. Same setup. Sealed rooms. No air. Bodies left to rot in the dark. By sundown on April 12th, they tallied 18 bodies. Every single one, a made man or a heavy hitter. Soldiers for Vincent Gigante, vanished between March 30th and April 2nd, all dead the same way, caged, breathing the same stale air until the oxygen died. Then the carbon dioxide finished the job. Detective Frank Morrison, the lead bull, told the press, 30 years on the force, I ain't never seen a horror show like this. This wasn't a clean shot to the head. These men were walled in alive. They had days to think about dying. They clawed at the walls, screamed until their throats bled. It was psychological torture on a level we don't see. The feds stepped in fast. This wasn't random work. It was a systematic wipeout of 18 pros, executed with military discipline. But the law didn't know the half of it. They missed the real story. 3 weeks back, these 18 guys signed their own death warrants. They clipped Willie Johnson, Bumpy's baby brother, his right hand. They dropped him outside the Apollo Theater. And what happened next wasn't just a hit. It was a lesson on what happens when you touch a man's blood. March 21st, 1955. 7:14 p.m., Bumpy Johnson took the call that started the bloodiest war of his life. Illinois Gordon was on the line, voice shaking with fear and rage. Boss, it's Willie. He's gone. They got him outside the Apollo. It was a pro job, boss. At least 5 shooters. All white guys. Moved like a unit. Emptied their clips and vanished. This was an execution, plain and simple. Willie was 54, 4 years younger than Bumpy. He ran the biggest numbers games in Harlem. He wasn't just a brother, he was the consigliere. Stood by Bumpy's side against Dutch Schultz. Stood tall against the Italians. Taking Willie out wasn't street beef. It was a strategic move, meant to cripple the organization and break Bumpy's heart. But the intel started flowing in fast. The order came from Vincent the Chin Gigante, a Genovese heavy looking to steal Harlem. Gigante built a hit squad, 18 hard cases, Irish, Italian, dirty cops. Their only job was to drop Willie Johnson. Step 1 in pushing Bumpy off the throne. These guys watched Willie for weeks, learned his moves. The Apollo hit was textbook, a public crowd to mask the shooters. Get in, kill, get out before the sirens wail. It went off without a hitch. 17 slugs from 5 guns. Willie was dead before he hit the pavement. Gordon said when he told Bumpy, the boss went stone cold. Didn't speak for 2 solid minutes. Just stood there, staring into the dark. Then he whispered, find them. Every shooter, every planner, anyone who knew and kept their mouth shut. I want them all. And I want them to hurt. I want them begging for death. Gordon never heard the boss sound so hollow. Usually, Bumpy is all business. This was grief curdling into pure hate. Gigante thought killing the brother would break the king. He was dead wrong. It didn't break him. It woke up the devil. Bumpy didn't just run a racket. He protected his blood. And this was war. The hunt started that second. Bumpy turned every rock in the city. Midnight, March 21st. First reports came in. 5 white shooters, coordinated attack. Definitely a contract. Getaway cars meant a support team. By March 23rd, the picture got clearer. A rat inside the Genovese family sang. Gigante ordered the hit to expand his territory. The crew was 18 strong. Shooters, drivers, eyes on the street. They'd been stalking Willie for a month. By the 26th, Bumpy had the names of almost every man on that list. The streets have ears, and the shadows talk informants, whispered about the job, and witnesses saw faces they shouldn't have seen. Dirty cops sold out the players, and reports flooded in from the Apollo Theater. 18 men, 5 shooters who pulled the trigger on Willie. Patrick O'Malley, 38 years old, a lean figure with rust-colored hair and a face carved by violence. Sean Brennan, 34, built like a tank with dark hair. Michael Flanagan, 36, towering and blonde. Thomas Murphy, 32, stocky with brown hair. Kevin Doyle, 35, standing average but marked with ink that told his story. And 4 wheelmen who drove the getaway cars. Anthony Romano, 31, Vincent Carlucci, 33, Joseph Rizzo, 29, all names on a list written in blood. Frank Messina, 37, and 4 lookouts who watched for the flashing lights. Robert Sullivan, 30, James McCarthy, 34, Daniel O'Brien, 32, William Connolly, 35 men who thought they were just watching a show. 3 planners who staked out the ground. Nicholas Santoro, 41, Salvatore Greco, 39, Marco DeVito, 42, and 2 dirty ex-cops who sold their badges for inside tips. Edward Wilson, 45, Richard Thompson, 43. All 18 men held a share in the conspiracy that left Willie Johnson cold on the pavement. Every single one of them would pay a price weighed perfectly against the grief and rage they had ignited. This was no simple snatch and grab, it was war. 18 targets scattered across the city required military precision. Bumpy rallied a small army, nearly 60 soldiers strong. Multiple crews moved in sync, striking simultaneously to bag the targets before the rats could smell the trap. The operation ran from March 30th to April 2nd. Patrick O'Malley was plucked from his Bronx apartment on March 30th. Sean Brennan and Michael Flanagan were taken together, stepping out of a bar that same night. Thomas Murphy was snatched from his girl's place on the morning of March 31st. Kevin Doyle was dragged from his car at a red light that afternoon. The 4 drivers vanished throughout the day. The 4 lookouts were swept up on April 1st in a coordinated strike across the city. The 3 planners were cornered that evening at their social club. The 2 crooked cops were bagged on April 2nd, sealing the collection. All 18 were hauled to abandoned buildings under Bumpy's control. Warehouses and storage yards, places forgotten by the city, had been prepped for the specific brand of hell Bumpy had designed. Inside, small rooms waited. 10 by 10 boxes with 8-foot ceilings, modified into airtight tombs. Every window was covered and sealed tight. Vents were choked off, doors reinforced and stripped to kill the airflow. These weren't just rooms anymore. They were execution chambers where the air would run out, slowly suffocating the men inside over hours or days, depending on how crowded the grave was. The 18 conspirators were split up. Some sat in solitary confinement, while others were packed 2 or 3 to a cell. This wasn't random. Bumpy wanted to test different flavors of fear dying alone in the dark versus watching your partners gasp for air. Quick endings versus slow torture, but in the end, they would all taste the same terror, the realization that the air was gone, and they were powerless to stop it. Bumpy paid a personal visit on April 4th to the place holding 4 of the shooters. O'Malley, Brennan, Flanagan, and Murphy sat in separate sealed boxes. Bumpy stood outside the steel, speaking to them before the final seal was placed. He made sure every man knew exactly why his clock was ticking. Standing at O'Malley's door, Bumpy's voice cut through the wood like a razor. "Patrick, 3 weeks ago, you and 4 others put 17 bullets in my brother Willie outside the Apollo. You took 17 grand to kill a man you never met, a man you didn't know, just because Vincent Gigante signed the check. That business decision brought you here. You're in a sealed box, the vents are plugged, and the door is shut tight. You're going to breathe that air until it's gone. First comes the struggle, then the dizziness, then the panic sets in. Eventually you'll black out, and then you die. You're going to feel what my brother felt. Your life is being stolen, but slowly, giving you hours to think about what you did." O'Malley's voice came through the door, muffled and shaking. "Johnson, please. It was just a job. Gigante paid us. That's all it was. We had no beef with your brother. Let me out. I know things. I'll give you Gigante. Please." Bumpy's voice remained ice cold. "My brother didn't get to beg because you pumped 17 rounds into him before he could open his mouth. You don't get the mercy you refuse to give. You're going to choke in that room, slow and steady. And when they find your corpse, they'll know what happens when you take blood from Bumpy Johnson." The same grim conversation played out at every door. Some men begged, others made threats, and a few turned to prayer. But the verdict was final. They killed Willie Johnson, and now they would choke on their own sins. From April 4th to April 11th, silence fell. The 18 rooms turned into tombs. The speed of death depended on the size of the box and the number of lungs inside. Solitary men lasted longer, suffering for 30 to 40 hours before the oxygen ran dry and the lights went out. Crowded rooms burned through the air faster, maybe 20 to 30 hours, fueled by panic and the struggle to breathe. The terror was absolute. The men trapped inside knew the end was coming. They felt the air turn heavy and stale, felt their lungs fighting for every useless breath. The air grew thick and heavy as the oxygen burned away. Their heads throbbed, but the real pain was the cold, hard realization this was the end of the line. There was no bargaining with that darkness. Some of them panicked, clawing at the steel doors, breaking their hands against the indifference of the walls. They scraped their fingers raw, trying to dig through the vents. Wasted effort. Every ounce of struggle just burned up the little air they had left. The smart ones sat still, nursing shallow breaths, praying for a miracle to bust through that door. But in this life, no rescue was coming. The seals held tight. The air ran out. One by one, the lights faded from the eyes of all 18 men. By April 7th, the screaming had stopped. By the 11th, exactly 3 weeks since they dropped Willie Johnson, the debt was paid in full. All 18 were gone. Bumpy let them sit in the dark just long enough for his crew to snap the pictures. Evidence for the archives. Then the bodies were dumped where the public would find them. A mess for the cops, but the hands that sealed that tomb left no prints behind. Vincent Gigante watched the clock. Days turned into silence. His 18-man crew had vanished into thin air right after the Johnson hit. He figured the law had pinched them, but the precincts were quiet. By early April, Gigante knew in his gut something disastrous had gone down. The answer landed on his desk, April 13th, a package delivered to his social club. Inside, a photo album straight from hell. Pictures of men twisted in agony, clawing at the floor. You could see the welded doors, the blocked vents, the architecture of a slow death. Every corpse had a name tag, typed out neat. Role in the hit, shooter, driver, lookout, and with the photos, a letter. These 18 rats killed my brother Willie Johnson on your word. I gave them plenty of time to think about it in the dark. They knew they were dead men walking, helpless. They felt the terror of life getting squeezed out of their lungs, breath by breath. I left the meat for the cops to find, but the rooms where they died, those stay shut. A monument. This is the price of touching my blood. You ordered a hit on my brother. I wiped out your whole payroll. Now, you make a choice. You want a war that burns your kingdom to ash, or you walk away from Harlem? Decide fast. My patience is running thin." Gigante stared at the paper. He hadn't just lost men. He'd lost 18 professionals and a fortune in investment. The photos were grim enough to turn stomachs. Even the hard cases in Gigante's crew looked green around the gills, seeing that suffocation work. The threat was crystal clear. Step up and face total destruction, or cut your losses and get out of Harlem. Gigante sat down with the commission. The Genovese bosses looked at the facts. The verdict was simple. "You started this fire, Vincent. You clipped Willie Johnson." Bumpy hit back. "It's ugly, sure, but the math adds up. Blood for blood. Willie wasn't just a soldier. He was Bumpy's brother." The 18-man execution was heavy, but in this life, you don't touch a man's family. If Gigante pushed it, he'd be fighting a war in a neighborhood he didn't own, against a man who didn't miss, a man who showed he could reach out and touch anyone. The commission didn't mince words. "Eat the loss, Vincent. Pack it up." Gigante looked around the table. No friends, no backup. He recognized the play. Bumpy had the upper hand. Being a pragmatist, Gigante decided to let the 18 bodies slide. No more Harlem dreams. The hit on Willie Johnson didn't buy him territory. It just bought him 18 funerals. It achieved nothing. Just a hard lesson that coming after Bumpy's family brings down the wrath of God. They buried Willie Johnson on March 26, 1955. Over 1,000 souls showed up to pay respects. Bumpy stood to speak. His voice was short and controlled, but everyone there could hear the thunder rolling just beneath the surface. "My brother Willie was taken by men who value the dollar over a human soul. They aren't standing here today. They paid the bill. We honor Willie by making sure the world knows you come for my table. You don't walk away without consequences. Consequences that make you pray you were never born." The story of the sealed rooms became a legend overnight. The word hit the street fast. Willie Johnson was hit by an 18-man crew on Gigante's dime. Bumpy tracked every single one of them in 3 weeks, bagged them, and bricked them up tight. Left them to gasp until the air ran out. He sent the photos to Gigante just to make sure the message was received. Gigante folded. Years later, Illinois Gordon sat at a bar and broke down the method to the madness. The boss didn't want it quick. He wanted those 18 rats to feel the exact same terror they inflicted. They pumped 17 slugs into an unarmed man. So the boss stole their air, minute by agonizing minute, kept them awake for the whole show, made them understand exactly why they were dying. It was cold, calculated, and necessary. It wasn't just revenge. It was justice. You make it ugly enough, nobody ever thinks about trying that nonsense again. The decision to wipe out all 18, not just the shooters, was Bumpy's law. If you're part of the plan, you're part of the grave. Planners, drivers, lookouts, dirty cops, they all got the same box. When Bumpy passed in 1968, the streets still remembered that silence. That tale became legend, the gold standard of how Bumpy shielded his blood and collected every single debt owed. Vincent Gigante, active in the racket for decades past 1955, never again made a move on Bumpy's Harlem turf. The message of those 18 suffocations was etched in stone forever. If you stuck around till the end, hit that like button if this story proves that in the life, targeting family triggers payback far worse than normal business beefs. Drop a comment. Was choking out all 18 guys right for Willie Johnson's hit? Is there such a thing as going too far when family gets touched? Subscribe, since these stories show how blood ties inside the outfit built some truly heavy dynamics, where personal heat and business aims mix to breed brutal retaliation campaigns. Don't forget those 3 weeks, March 21st, 7:14 p.m. Willie Johnson clipped outside the Apollo Theater by 5 gunmen, a pro hit ordered by Vincent Gigante, 17 slugs, gone in a flash. March 21st to 26th. The word on the street named all 18 rats. March 30th to April 2nd, they snatched every one across New York. April 4th and 11th, all 18 locked in sealed rooms with no air, a slow choke over hours or days. All dead by April 11th, exactly 3 weeks after Willie's hit. April 13th, photos and a note reached Gigante. Gigante passed on payback. 18 bodies found by the badges. That lesson lasted decades. This tale became the ultimate lesson on protecting blood. That ain't just payback. That's total justice, wiping out every soul who touched the family. Served up cold to cause max pain and leave a heavy mark. 18 guys sealed in, 18 guys choked out. One loud message: put a hand on Bumpy's blood, and nobody walks away.